Do you manage your days in the most efficient way possible? This was the question I had today. I was reading a book on from Bob Proctor actually, and it was how to change our paradigm. And he was talking about how it's important to reflect on time management. And the whole idea, and I've mentioned to in the past that idea, when you are looking at your day, is it better to manage your time so that you can do as much as possible? Is it better to manage activities where you can focus on what needs to be done, the priorities, and then you set aside what's not necessary or the activities that don't move the needle? Or do you do so there's time, activity, or do you manage your energy? And that's also important. For example, I am much better in the morning. Morning is when I have all the energy of the world. I can focus on what I need to do. And by the time we get closer to the end of the afternoon, it is much harder. And because the fact that I've given so much energy at the beginning of the day. So the question is the following. So if you have to do something, do you manage time? Do you manage activities? Or do you manage your energy? And all of this is something that you should think about all the time. Because when you think of time, time cannot be, you cannot be given. No, you cannot replace time that has gone by. We're giving, we're given a specific amount of hours, minutes, and seconds in a day. And once that day is over, then we get a new set. However, we cannot go back and get that time back. So let's see. When we look at um, a worker, someone who does hands on activities, we always look at managing time. It's easy. We have the clocks, we have our watches, there's the clock on the wall. We know when to start, we know when we finish. And it works very nicely when we block our time to do activities. So when I teach in a classroom, I have two classes in the morning from 8:05 to 9:26, and then from 9:30, I think it's 9:30 to 10:43. It's all good. The time is specific, so it is helping me to manage my time. If you work in a manufacturer, you're paid by the hours. That's the same thing. When you're paid by the hour, then what's most important is what you do during that time. Now, when you change jobs and you no longer are paid with hourly, then you are being paid as a salary. So, a yearly salary, for example. So, as a teacher, I'm not paid by the hour, I'm paid as a salary. So, that means here that what's most important are the activities that I need to do. So, I need to take care of my classes from a specific time to an end time. On the other hand, I need to take my own time to prepare those classes. And once they're done, I need to be able to give feedback to students, mark evaluations, so that at the beginning of the following class or a couple of days later, I have all the information needed to move forward. So once you're paid by salary, then you'll say that, okay, we are looking at activities as more important as dealing with your time. Because as a teacher, I could spend 5 hours a day because I'm scheduled to work for 5 hours at my school, but I often work about 10 hours a day on average. So I work about 50 to 55 hours a week. The reason is on top of being in class with my students, I have to prepare them, marking, and so on. So here it's not really about the number of hours or the time that is important. It's how I manage the activities to make sure it works well. Now, on top of that, we have managing our energy. And this is something that I'm working all the time because in the morning I have energy and in the afternoon I have less energy. On the other hand, I have classes in the morning and classes in the afternoon. For the same reason, if you work in as a line cook, for example, you are doing cooking the morning and afternoon, or afternoon and evening, or evening and night. So what happens is you need to be somehow productive for the whole time. So you need to manage your energy. And that's why breaks are important. That's why eating time is important. So today we have an activity. I had a break time and I had a lunch time. It's important. It gives us a chance to re energize, to refocus on who we are, what we do, and make sure that we are ready for the afternoon. See, it is my lunchtime right now, finding the time to record this video, but also reflecting on what's most important for me, but also for people around me. So now we've talked about managing time, managing activities, and then managing energy. But the next thing we have to keep in mind is okay, so we have activities to do. There are things we need to do. All of us have a to do list. But what happens is we don't always have all the time to do everything we want because we have a limited number of hours to work with. But we often have an unlimited list of activities we could do because there are things that we want to do, things that we should do, things that we want to do. And all of these need to be put in our schedule to make sure things work out. So here, managing our time, then we need to think about a schedule. So, okay, so let's block time for specific activities. We can do that. Now, the question is now that we set some time to work on specific projects, specific activities, the big question we have to look into is of all the activities we have to do, that we want to do, we should do, of all the different projects that we want to do, we should do, we need to do, or all the activities we could do on our to do list, we have to figure out okay, what are the activities that are the most important? Because if you're like me, you always have a list of there's like 10 things to do. On weekends, there's 20 things to do. And then you do one thing at a time. And at some point, you say, okay, well, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. And at some point, you finish the weekend and there's still a few things you need to do. Same thing as a teacher. I have in mind several lessons that are coming up. We're working on the new projects that is coming. Now, there's a lot of things that I would like to do. On the other hand, given the time I have with my students and given the time I have to prepare, I won't be able to do everything that I want to do. So I'm going to have to choose. And here comes the next point. If you have to choose what you need to do, or you want to do, or you should do, then at some point you have to have a list of activities or projects that is on a to-do list. And I always love to talk about a not to-do list. Because a not to-do list is important because if you look at all the things you have to do, that's taking some mental energy to take care of that. Now, if you keep all of those things together, you might end up with a point where you get stressed, there's anxiety, you don't know if you'll be able to get them done. So at some point you say, okay, is it possible for me to take some of those and put it on a not to do list? Activities on the not to do list could be something that you could do next week, could be an activity that you could do tomorrow, or it could be an activity that if you think about it, it will not bring anything better in your life. It will not move the needle, in which case it's an idea. But if you just scratch it completely from your to-do list and the not to-do list, then you're going to free some mental energy. And that's important because of all the activities and the things we want to do, we have to do, and we should do. All of those are taking mental energy. So therefore, it's important to look at the list and say, okay, and so here are the notes I was scribbling this morning when I was in a meeting. When there are activities to do, you have to look at something. You have to say, okay, does it have to be done by me? It's important because let's backtrack a little bit. The question is, does this activity or that project, does it need to be done? That's the first thing. Because if it needs to be done, then it's on a to-do list. But if it doesn't need to be done, then you can set it aside because it's not important at that moment. And that's important. So the first question is, does this activity need to be done? The next one is, does it need to be done by me? Now it works with the first question a little bit because if you have some project, something that needs to be done, you have to realize that you don't have to do everything. You can delegate. You can have an assistant. You could have some helpers. You could have, if you can look for new volunteers to work with you. So in some ways, there are things that needs to be done, but you have to look into, does it have to be done by me? If it does, then you keep it on a to-do list. But if it doesn't need to be done by you, then may as well put it on a list where you delegate it to somebody else. Somebody else who could be your assistant or some helpers. In that case, it no longer needs to be in your list, but it becomes the responsibility of another person, and at the same time, freeing some mental energy. So then again, when you have an activity, something to do, is it something that needs to be done? Does it need to be done by you? And the next question is, does it need to be done now? We always have ideas and projects and things that are amazing or that would be amazing in our lives. If you can pinpoint the fact that, okay, if it needs to be done, then it becomes a priority. If it doesn't need to be done, then why worry? And the next one is, does it need to be done by me? If yes, then it's on your to-do list. And if no, well, it's time to delegate, or maybe it's not important. And if you think about the idea that does it need to be done now, then you might realize that on your to-do list, there are maybe 3 things that needs to be done by you, that it needs to be done, but it doesn't need to be done now, today, or this week. You can actually put this activity and put it for next Tuesday. And by doing that, it does a few things. It gives you a chance to free some time, free some mental energy to focus on what you really need to do at that moment, right here and right now. So I hope that is helping you. And it is a topic that I've been thinking this morning because I have a lot of things to do and I need to figure out how I can do this. So I'm looking into those activities. Do they need to be done? Do they need to be done by me? And do they need to be done now? I believe in you. Be great, and I'll see you tomorrow.